the way that it happens without us realizing it in subtle ways. And so it's not, the message isn't never take a pill, never take a supplement, never do this, never do that. It's be thoughtful about, how you're thinking about its role and what other effects it may have, so that you're not sort of putting all your hope in a supplement. You're remembering that at best it's just one element in a much bigger operation.
Today on the show, I'm talking to Alex Hutchinson. I think this guy is a total badass. He wrote a book called Endure: Mind, Body, and the Curiously Elastic Limits of Human Performance. And I came to know him through an article in Outside magazine called Most Supplements Don't Work, But That's Not the Worst Part, which, if you can find that article and read it, I highly suggest it. It's an Outside. Most supplements don't work, but that's not the worst part. This guy is awesome. Please enjoy the conversation. Alex Hutchinson, welcome to the American Glutton podcast.
Thanks so much, Ethan. It's awesome to be here.
Dude, I read an article that you wrote for Outside magazine called Most Supplements Don't Work, But That's Not the Worst Part. And, sometimes I will say, in fairness, my wife is a vitamin person, and I was raised with a vitamin mom, and then I became a drug addict, and drugs had such a profound and immediate effect that once I got sober and wasn't doing any drugs anymore, the first time somebody was like, "Take these vitamins, they're going to make you feel so much better," and nothing happened, I was like, this is not for me. I'm not a vitamin person, and I never experienced any change or help from them as a kid, and I'm just over it. Your article spoke to me so deeply and so profoundly. I think I shared it with 100 people, and I was just like, this is it, man. This is the juice. This is what it's about. This is what's happening. People take these things and then they actually get worse, I think.
It is. So that's awesome to hear that you shared it. I really appreciate that. And I want to start by saying, I grew up as a vitamin kid too. Flintstone vitamins, man. They were delicious, and I felt like I was, fueling my body for an active day. So my background is I was a competitive runner. I ran for the Canadian national team for a number of years. And so I was really focused on anything that could give me the 0.1% edge. And so I took a ton of supplements. I was willing to try all sorts of things. And so it's not like I want to be, like the title of my article is like, all supplements are useless. No. People might read the subtext as anyone who takes supplements is an idiot. And I'm like, no. I get it. Trust me. I'm writing it because I get it. And like you, I think I've had a journey that has, where I've come to look back and say, you know what I was chasing there was, I understand why I was chasing it, but I was chasing the wrong things, and I was using the wrong path to get to where I wanted to go. And I look back and I'm like, what is the evidence for any of that stuff that helps us? And then, so that's one part of it is, and we can get into this, but one part is, do these things work? But then the other part of it is, the place we want to get is a pill going to get us there? Or is that in trying to look for that shortcut, are we short-circuiting some of the other ways that are more effective of getting to where we want to go?
Yeah, and that was the other fascinating thing, the study, I think, in Taiwan that you cite, where that was something I hadn't even taken into consideration, which is many of the people who take supplements wind up slipping or becoming more lax in other areas of their life. So that's like just a trade-off that I hadn't considered. And in fairness, I take caffeine every day. I actually take nicotine every day. I suck on lozenges. I don't smoke, haven't smoked in 20 years, but I do have some nicotine every day. And I take creatine every day. And creatine, I notice when I lift weights. And when I don't take it, I lose 5 pounds. And then there's this struggle of like, I want to have, because I like losing weight, I want that 5 pound loss, but I know it's just water in my muscles. And then I might get fatigued a little bit earlier in the gym and go like, oh, I just forgot to pack creatine on this trip and it's been 2 weeks without it. So I take that every day. But like there's no part of me that's going to a powerlifting meet. I don't do powerlifting meets, but I'm not in the gym going like, I'm going to get another 5 pound plate on the bar because I've taken my creatine. You know what I mean? But there was probably at some point where I thought, I'm going to take this stuff and I'm going to get so like jacked and be able to do so much. And that just wasn't the case.
Well, and you know, here's the danger of the media world that I work in. Of course, I want my headlines to grab people's attention, right? And the way the modern world works is the more extreme the headline, the more it grabs attention. So I'm a sort of, in some sense, an anti-supplement crusader. But there are supplements that work. They're like I when I remember, I take some vitamin D in the winter. I live up in Canada, you know, like the sun goes away for a long time.
Right.
Creatine works. There's, if you look at the International Olympic Committee did a every once in a while it brings together experts from around the world to say like, all right, we know that people are spending like $32 billion a year on supplements. Should we kind of provide some guidance as to what might work or what? And they have like, and, you know, and there's no black and white, right? Like it's very hard to know what really works and what really doesn't, especially when you're looking for small margins. But they have a list of like 5 supplements where they're like, yeah, if you're trying to boost performance, these ones seem to have pretty good evidence. Creatine is one of those. Like if someone wants to put on muscle, like I would say creatine's a good call. If you know, doesn't mean if you want to lift weights, you have to take creatine,
Right.
But it has real effects, put it that way. So you're not the real, you know, you mentioned that study in Taiwan and the effect they dubbed this effect the licensing effect. So it's like people think of vitamins as, or a lot of supplements as kind of an insurance policy, right? Like, I know I should eat my fruits and vegetables and I know I should do this, but life is busy and sometimes I'm not perfect. So I'm going to take this multivitamin, whatever it is. And then if I forget to pack the carrots and the apple in my lunch, I'm okay. But then it's like, you're in the morning, it's a rush, and it's like, I don't have time to wash the apple and peel the carrots. So it's okay. I took my multivitamin this morning. So you've created the situation that you were trying to insure against. And so I'm kind of wandering off. Sorry, this is a random answer,
but that's like, all the fascinating stuff from this article you wrote, which is all the stuff that I'd never even considered. And you know, it took me so long to figure this out with regard to exercise, because I tried for many years to lose weight through various different means and methods. And one of them was, I'm just going to kill myself in the gym every day or just do cardio, and that will be how I lose weight. And the reality was, when I'd finish, I was so exhausted, I'd literally go lay in bed for most of the rest of the day. Therefore, the non-active thermogenesis that was happening, the non-exercise thermogenesis would be shot, would be nothing compared to what it would have been had I just done a light workout. You know, those were the trade-offs that I wasn't thinking about. And so it's fascinating. You know, listen, when my wife is menstruating and she becomes really sluggish, if she takes some iron or eats a steak, her energy picks up. That's valid. Like, I can see that happening. And I'm not like saying don't mess with the iron pill, just eat the steak. I get it. Sometimes she doesn't want to eat a steak and she just wants to take an iron pill. But I think your overall point is, and mostly I'm thinking about it in terms of weight loss, but many times I was sold on supplements that were going to handle something else that was then going to produce weight loss. Like, my goal was always I just don't want to be as heavy as I am. And suddenly I'm on this regimen of vitamins so that I can fix something else so that I can then lose weight. And it never worked.
And it creates the hope. You're hoping that the pill is going to do something. And some of them may do something. A lot of them, I mean, the obvious, or the elephant in the room is that most of them are absolutely nothing.
Right.
So the easy judgment is that, like, the supplements that were sold that are peddled by the wellness and weight loss industry, so many of them are useless. Then there are some, like, you know, creatine would be an example of something that has real effects. And it's a question of using that in a way that doesn't undermine the other things you're trying to do. So, like, if your wife was like, I'm just going to take iron supplements and I'm not going to worry about like whether I'm sleeping well or whether I'm, you know, eating healthily or getting outside or all these other things, And obviously she's not doing that. But if she was doing that, that would be where the problem is. And I think maybe what resonated with you in the article, and certainly what I think I found really interesting about this research about the licensing effect, is the way that it happens without us realizing it in subtle ways. And
Yeah.
so it's not the message isn't never take a pill, never take a supplement, never do this, never do that. It's be thoughtful about how you're thinking about its role and what other effects it may have, so that you're not sort of putting all your hope in a supplement. You're remembering that at best it's just one element in a much much bigger operation.
Yeah, man. If you want to be a power lifter or a bodybuilder, or you're looking for some goal with lifting weights, um, it's fine to add creatine, but you can't let creatine do the job. It won't do the job. It's not going to do the hard work for you. The hard work is still necessary. But to your article's point, it might give you a tiny, tiny, tiny little edge to increase slightly more. And I actually don't know, you as a runner, if creatine, I think runners take more of the beta, are more like the endurance athletes are more beta alanine is more useful, right? Or apparently more useful.
Yeah, so for sure, there's beta and alanine and beet juice and actually baking soda and caffeine, of course. Those are the all useful for endurance athletes. Creatine, to be honest, it's having a little bit of a moment more broadly. Endurance athletes, depends on the endurance athlete. Some of them are cautious. You don't want to carry around extra muscle if you're running a marathon, let's say.
Right.
But you do want to be strong for your frame or for your size. And so for some endurance athletes, it's actually maybe some of them take creatine to be able to keep enough muscle on. And especially as you get older, creatine has. So what I've seen, creatine is actually a great example because it has real effects. There's a reason every guy in the gym takes creatine. And its effects are probably broader than just muscle. Like it may have value for as people age. There's been a lot of talk recently about maybe creatine enhances brain function. Maybe creatine enhances. There's probably, I wrote an article about it. Last year at some point, looking at here's the 27 things that people now think creatine might do.
Oh wow!
And so this is where you get into the danger zone, because then now all of a sudden people are like, well, I got to take creatine because I want to optimize my cognitive function, and I want to optimize my energy, and I want to optimize my libido, and I want to, and X and Y and Z. And then it's become a miracle drug instead of what it is, which is, for the most part, its main thing is it gives you the cellular energy to be able to push a little more in the gym, to get that extra few percent in the gym. And again, the important thing to understand is creatine doesn't make you stronger. Right. Creatine allows you to do the work that makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And so there's no shortcut through the pill. It's just it enables you to do the hard work.
Do you think that and I don't like talking to everyone's experience, but I do think that anecdotally what I've seen is, and experience for myself for many years, was just this very strong desire to avoid the work or be more efficient so that I didn't have to work as hard. With supplements, it really was, for the majority of my life, like, okay, here's one path, which is totally change the way my relationship is with food and my activity level, and cut certain things out because I tend to not be able to control myself with certain things. And that's like fast food. I have a hard time eating fast food. I'm hungry much quicker. I could eat much more of it. So I'm going to super limit that and eat foods that fill me up more and give me more energy. This is my personal structure that's worked for me. So that's a path. The other path is, lectins are harming me. And if I just excise lectins from my life, I don't have to do anything else. I can overeat steak and potatoes all day long. I hope potatoes are low in lectins. I'm pretty sure they are, and I don't have to think about my activity level. I can play video games all day and I'll lose weight because the lectins are what's doing it. And that path just seems easier to me. So this is not new. Vitamins have been around since I was a kid. What's happening with the desire to hack? It's all getting more scientifically profound, it seems, with people explaining it in a way where it's like, no, it's surefire now. We have evidence.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because on the one hand, I do think it's timeless. Like this has been, people in the 1800s were going around from town to town with their bottles of literal snake oil,
right?
Selling it, and for the reasons you say, because it's like you think about your journey with weight. Like, how are you gonna generalize that, package it, and sell it to 10 million people?
If I could, I'd be doing it, but I don't think it's possible.
It's not possible. And so it's like, and same for, as a journalist in the health and fitness space, it's very easy for me to poo-poo the latest fad and say that's whatever the latest fad is, and there's a lot of them, and they keep churning. It's like that's not going to be the answer for everyone. Then a fair challenge to me is like, okay, Mr. Smarty Pants, you think you know so much. How should everyone lose weight? And my answer to that is, I have no idea. Like,
right.
it's different for everybody. I know some things.
It's not one size fits all.
Yeah, and so that's a hard path to say like, hey, here's the jungle. You head into the jungle, and if you just keep kind of heading towards the sun, you'll make it through eventually. At some point, I don't know. Maybe it'll be 2 years. Maybe it'll be 5 years.
And it's going to be so hard. It's going to be brutal. Life doesn't allow for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So then it's like, okay, thanks for your advice. I'm going to head over here where the guy has the easy method, whether it's a supplement or whether it's just, if you just eliminate foods that contain the letter J, it's going to be, something that's cognitively easy and seems like an assured, like it's natural. So both from a supply and a demand side. On the demand side, it's natural that we want solutions like that. It's like me, I want to put on muscle. I want there to be an easy, just do this exercise or just do this many reps of this. What you've been doing wrong all this time is you were doing 8 reps instead of 5 reps and blah, blah, whatever the case may be. So we want that. And then there's and I think to get to your question about what's changing, there's the supply side of like people like me who are trying to make a living in the health and fitness space. And if you want to get rich, you package easy answers for people because that's what, that's where you're going to be able to, grow your audience, and you package unexpected or counterintuitive answers. Like you thought that you needed to live a healthy lifestyle, but actually what you need to do is the lectins or the whatever.
Right.
And so, yeah, we are living through an age of like biohacking, right? Like the whole Silicon Valley tech bros, we're going to optimize everything. And so we're going to measure everything, and we're going to take the right molecule at the right time that's going to make us smarter and fitter and faster. I don't know if that's just like a passing cultural trend or whether it's baked into the way social media spreads ideas these days, that maybe that's given people a platform. Because there's definitely like, look, without, going after specific people, but it's like, there's a thing of like, here's a 3-hour explanation of the biochemistry of something that makes it sound like we have solved weight loss and sleep and happiness and cognitive function and stuff. And you boil it down, and what it boils down to is buy my supplement line.
Right.
And that's, like just to get it out there. How many people in the health and fitness space are selling their own bespoke line of supplements?
Yeah.
And if, I'll avoid generality, like it's not a universal thing, but I should say, I would just say as a rough rule of thumb, if someone is selling their own line of supplements, they lose the objectivity to be able to, really evaluate whether supplements are working or not, because they're selling it, right? And it's hard. We all are influenced by the incentives in front of us. So anyway, that's, I don't know. It's a slightly cynical answer, but
it gets so tricky. The most recent one, I was around, I was like fully in it for lectins and like, was like, okay, no lectins. I'm going to peel my tomatoes and take the seeds out. And to be honest with you, I still take the seeds out, but only because I don't like a soggy salad. And so I don't peel them anymore because I do not care, because there was no change that I could perceive at all from not eating cucumber skin at all. Um, but recently I was at a convention, and there was a gal backstage, and she was just walking around pointing out folates. And I was just like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, that's what's doing everybody in. It's the folates. And I was like, okay, this is fascinating. I want to hear all about this. And it mirrors the lectin thing. I mean, it's not the same molecule, but it's like the same kind of mindset around this thing of, if I just don't eat this refined flour, I'm going to be fine. And I can stay up late drinking, and it's not going to have any effect on me because I didn't eat Wonder Bread. And I actually think, there is on some level where I think en masse, it's harmful.
I agree. And I think, and we could go down the pike going, well, is it the seed oils, or is it the there's just an infinite number of things where, if you go down that rabbit hole and read all the papers that are being, you come away thinking like, I don't know, maybe it is.
Sure.
Like, maybe it is. And you talk to the people in those communities, and it's like, it changed my life. I used to be, I was bleeding out my eyes and my limbs were falling off. And then I cut out this one thing, and now I'm, I can fly and everything's wonderful. And, and these people are sincere, right? Like, it's yes, there are lots of grifters in the wellness industry, but there are a lot of people who are super sincere and trying to figure it out. But and maybe we will figure it out. Maybe there is one thing that's doing it, and we'll figure it out at some point, and it'll be. For me, I've been writing about health and fitness, and my shtick is I'm a kind of evidence-based guy. I accept that there's a lot of questions we don't know the answer to. I'm gonna try and find the things we have good evidence for. And I've followed an arc that maybe kind of in some ways parallels your own arc of in the weight loss space, where I started out being enthusiastic and chasing down the each new theory that came, and I'd write about it, and I'd say, well, we don't know for sure yet, but here's the suggestive evidence, and maybe it's worth a try. And after 20 years, it's like, all right, we've gone through all these things.
We never get anywhere.
Yeah, and this applies in the performance space too, because I read a lot about like performance nutrition. It's like, our ketones, our liquid ketones, going to be the key to super new endurance? And it's like, or is it a transcranial direct current, like electric brain stimulation? Is that going to be the answer? I look at the evidence for that stuff, and it's like, it's interesting, and I try that stuff and I write about it, and then. And I'm like, and I think I'm being skeptical, but then you fast forward 5 years, and it's like, everyone's like, ketones? No, man, that was 2019.
Right.
Now we're doing like 120 grams of carb an hour. That's the key to win the Tour de France. And so then, at a certain point, the realization that kind of underlies the article on supplements that you saw in Outside is that, for me, it's like, I just want to get off the treadmill here. It's like, we don't have enough. When a new theory comes up, I can't go and like, well, I'm going to look it up in the Great Book of Life, and it says that this isn't the answer. No, I can't disprove every new theory. And I can't remember, there's a name for this, someone's law. It's like the bullshit asymmetry principle, that it takes like 10 times as much effort to debunk.
Disprove it. Yeah.
As to claim it. So it's like, I'm stepping off the carousel. And I'm going to say, like, let it keep spinning. When something really works, we'll know, because it will spread like wildfire. And then I'll take a look. But until then, I'm not going to keep chasing every new idea, every new fad, every new supplement. And I'm going to assume that they don't work until we really have good proof that they do.
In a world besieged by unhealthy choices, where fast and ultra-processed foods are omnipresent and dominate society, you can fight back. Introducing the Prep Deck, a radical new tool that turns temptation into healthy choices. This is not a diet, and we realize that this commercial has told you nothing at all about the product itself. Please follow the link below for more information. Well, I mean, that's the other thing. There's some cognitive dissonance here, and I admit it. I had it for a long time. I did keto probably 10 times, and I lost weight the first 10 days every time. And now I know what that was, the mechanics of what was happening to my body to produce like just the most glorious 10-pound weight loss in a week. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, yes, we're on. And then I did it for a while and the weight loss stopped and I just flatlined nowhere near where I wanted to be. And it became grinding because then I was going like, well, I guess I also have to be hungry. So now I'm unknowingly cutting calories while doing keto. My point is just, if any of these things were the thing, the universal thing, as they're all sold, the whole thing would be solved. We would not, there would be no argument because everybody who had done it would have success and would be trucking along, not eating carbs, and it wouldn't be a problem. Or lectins, or some guy in the Congress would say like, let's make a law about lectins or limit lectins. It would be that big a deal if it produced such radical results, and none of them do. But we as people want, I was recently looking at Richard Feynman's principles, and the first is like, do not allow yourself to be fooled. You are the easiest to fool. You know what I mean?
That's my like mantra in life, because I talk to a lot of people who are like, but I tried it and it worked. And I'm like, how do you know it worked? Like, how can you tell?
Right.
You take a pill and you're like, I felt better. Like, of course you felt better, but to know whether that's actually doing what you think it's doing, that people, it's very, so, okay, as a journalist, I get, a flow of press releases. We'd like to send you this product. You can try it out and share your experiences with your readers. And some of them look like, oh, I'd kind of like to try that product, but I say no to all of them, because I don't have any faith in my ability to really know whether something is working without running like randomized, blinded stuff. I know I can be convinced. I know I will fool myself, and I know like I'm not not to pump myself up, but I'm not a jerk. So if someone's really nice to me and sends me a thing that I'm going to try,
you don't want to say this sucks.
I don't want to say that you're all idiots. You're dumb. Don't buy this. Like, so the easiest thing for me is because and it's not, I think there is a role for like experiment. People have to try it and people should write about that. And we should learn from what people's first person experience. My place in the ecosystem is I want to look at the evidence and find and evaluate like whether it worked. And so it actually would work against me to have personal opinions, because like Richard Feynman says, you're the easiest person to fool. And so yeah. I don't even want to have an opinion. So people are like, you've written 27 articles about ketones. What do you think about the taste? It's like, I've never tasted one. They wanted to send me one. They did send me stuff and I just didn't even try it because I don't want to know what it tastes like, because that's a different question. Is it fun to take? Do you feel cool? Is it a nice bottle? Those are fine questions, but that's not what I'm interested in. And as far as to your previous point about we would know if something worked, there's a great example of that in the running world. So there are a billion things that runners do that the evidence suggests will make them 1 or 2% faster. An infinite number of things. In 2017, Nike introduced a new kind of running shoe with a stiff carbon plate in it, which basically makes you more efficient. It kind of gives you some of your energy back. And what it effectively did is make runners about 2% faster. So the world records in basically every road running distance and every track distance, because they put them in track spikes, have come down in the last like 5 or 6 years. It is completely upended the sport. Every other shoe company had to match these shoes. Every elite runner runs in nothing but these shoes. I've never seen anything like it. It was like the world's most contagious shoe virus. People were like, when only Nike had the shoes, people who were sponsored by other companies were painting were buying Nikes and painting their shoes to try and look like their sponsors' shoes, to avoid, because you couldn't win a race without the new type of shoe, and they were losing their sponsorships and losing their livelihoods when they were caught. That's what it looks like when something actually works, and when it gives you a 2% rough, 2 or 3% advantage. So then you ask me like, or all these other things we're doing that are supposed to give a 2% advantage. It's like, I don't think that's giving you 2% reliably, because some people do it, some people don't. It doesn't really matter. You can't tell, like you think it's giving you 2%. No, when something works, even at a 2% level, it can completely change the world. Like
Yeah.
the shoes have been the biggest story in endurance running in the last 10 years. And that's what it looks like when it works. And that's what gives me confidence when something is like, well, I'm pretty sure it works. It's like, I don't think so. Otherwise, everyone else would be
If
doing it.
everybody in the space moves over and adopts something as a policy, and we no longer run without this type of shoe, says to me that type of shoe creates an effect. It's useful. Especially if you look and the times are all changing and people are faster. You know what I mean? Like that's about as clear as you can get. If suddenly a diet came out tomorrow and all the people that I knew who have been dieting for the last 20 years and having the same struggles suddenly were losing weight and not miserable and fatigued and like, no, I just changed this, or in fairness, the closest thing to the miracle is the diet drugs that are available now. Those seem to be having a profound effect.
Yeah. And that's a great point. I was hoping that would come up because, and I don't know a ton about like Ozempic, but I know that from what I've heard and what I've seen and what the science is saying, that actually these do what I never thought I would see, which is cause weight loss. And that's going to require some shifting of like, okay, well, so what does that mean about what advice I would give someone? So I don't have the knowledge to weigh in on that, except that I agree that it looks to me like this is the start of something of a different paradigm, and we'll have to see how that works.
It becomes frustrating to a point because the people who are like ultra into naturopath or I don't even know the word for what that group is, but you know who I'm talking about, like anti-processed food. When I had this conversation with my daughter recently, she was like, we can't eat processed food. And I said, that steak that you're eating came in a cellophane package. That's processing. Like, what are you going to just walk up to cows and bite them? If you slaughter it, it's processing. And she was like, okay, Dad, ultra processed. And I get her point. Like, and I tend to agree. For me, there are some high protein processed foods, which I eat sometimes. And I can't eat more than a small bag or a serving of them. They're not good enough, and so I don't overeat them. Give me a bag of Doritos, I can overeat a bag of Doritos. So that for me is the cutoff on how something is processed versus unprocessed and what my relationship with it will be. But the group out there that goes like, it's all personal responsibility and you're just eating too much, which I'm not a part of that. I think that recognizing that there's a situation and changing it requires personal responsibility. But I think when you're in the situation that you're just living life and you're not making a decision every time you eat, so it gets really complicated. They'll talk about how, there's going to be some big problem with the drugs. I don't know, man. People have been taking these for diabetes for a number of years now, and there hasn't been some huge spike in, thyroid cancer or, prolapsed anuses or whatever they say is going to happen. And I know for a fact, had I not figured out my life in a way that I was pretty happy with before these drugs had come out, I would be on them 1,000,000%. Because I tried a thing called HCG. There was a whole diet built around this hormone HCG. And yeah, I could do 30 days with getting these injections from a doctor and eating 500 calories a day and lose lots of weight. I don't actually know that the injections were doing much because I was hungry and fatigued and on the verge of blacking out at all times. But I did that diet and I lost weight. And then the minute I was off of the diet, I gained the weight back really, really quickly. I guess that's my biggest fear with those drugs is if they're not utilized long-term, are they going to be better than the crash diets that people do? I think they'll be more pleasant, but I don't think the long-term effect will be much better if people aren't on them for a while.
Yeah. I mean, I think this whole discussion is a really important kind of litmus test of how we're thinking about supplements because I, I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't a sort of underlying puritanical streak in my sort of anti-supplement
Sure.
stance that
I
oh,
have it
well,
too.
you have to suffer. You have to, it's about personal growth. You don't want to take shortcuts. And I think there's something actually like I think we kind of talked about this earlier, but there is something valuable about finding your own journey. But I think that's predicated on the idea that the supplement isn't doing what you'd hoped it was, and so you're looking for shortcuts that aren't there. If there's a pill that does what Ozempic seems to do at this point, or semaglutide, or what the general class of drugs, and if I were to still say, yeah, but I don't know, you're not getting the personal growth you would get out of going through the 12-year journey of suffering, then I'm a jerk, right? Like that's a stupid position to take. And so you have to say, well, okay, maybe this is going to be different than the many things we've all seen come before. And so far it looks like it is. Now,
Who
10,
knows?
10 years will pass. Like even you look back at keto, and a lot of people had a lot of success initially with keto, and I think it can be life changing for some people. I also think that now that let's say 10 plus years have passed since the first kind of surge of interest or the most recent surge of interest in it, we can see that there's a ton of people who had experiences like you had, which is like it does stuff initially, didn't get me where I wanted to get. It didn't get me in a place where I wanted to stay in that situation. For some people it did, for some it didn't. So we could say keto is a useful tool for some people, but it's not a universal panacea.
Yeah,
And
I want to just say to the point of keto and of any of this stuff, like my first diet, like not a diet that was forced on me as a kid, but the first diet I woke up as basically an adult. I'd had a little time being sober, and I woke up one day and was like, oh, there's a whole other part of my house that's on fire. I addressed the part that was drugs and alcohol, and I spent a year getting my sea legs with sobriety, which was super important because I don't think you should tackle everything all at once. Or the times that I tried to tackle I'm going to quit smoking, quit coffee, quit heroin and pills, and eat better all in one day. I'm going to change everything. That is a house of cards, or it was for me. So I get some time, and then it's like, oh, I want to address my weight now. And the first diet I did was a liquid diet. I did it for 60 days. I lost 80 pounds. I never once dipped into that loss. That loss was banked. And the thing that I think was beneficial for me, because I would never do that diet today, if I had a photo shoot or something, or I wanted to get extra lean, I would never do a super low calorie liquid diet today. But it gave me the knowledge that I could lose weight. It gave me the knowledge that I could do something hard and come through it and have success. And that, I believe, kept me going time and time again. And similarly with keto, that first week where you're just purging your muscles of glycogen, where I'm not thinking that when I step on the scale and see a big loss, that kind of boost of confidence of like, I'm on a path that is showing results, I think can be both useful and detrimental because it's not all fat, which is what I think it is. But it's giving me hope, which keeps me going.
yeah, and like the truth is we can say the same about some supplements too, that I mean, the mindset is so important, and self-confidence and self-belief. And so again, like to make the comparison to like elite athletes, for example, um, the truth, there's a billion supplements out there. All but five basically probably don't work. But if you survey, the Olympic gold medalists in across sports for the last 20 years, 90% of them are taking an array of supplements. So it's like, hold on, how do we square this circle? Like, you're telling me I shouldn't be taking these supplements, and yet all the people who are winning all the races are taking the supplements. Yeah, and so if I'm giving advice to an elite athlete, it's not like stop taking all your pills. Because sometimes that's like, yeah, take off all your clothes, throw away your stilts, whatever. It's like, no, that stuff's probably not doing anything, but it's part of this process that's giving you the belief that when you step to the start line, you're more prepared. You have a secret weapon that the other people don't have, or you've done this thing, you've been on this journey. So there's like, and these things are not. It's not about what the pill is doing in their muscle cells or whatever. It's about what it's doing to their mindset. And so
Yeah.
the ways that just going on keto or taking a pill or taking a supplement or doing something that someone you trust has told you is going to help you, sometimes that gives you the self-efficacy to then say, I can stick with this. It's difficult, but I know I can do it because I've got this multi-pronged approach. And so
Right.
it's really, it can be, maybe not self-defeating, but I'm cautious about specifically telling people don't do X, Y, or Z if it gives them confidence and gives them belief. As a general philosophy, my feeling is the more you can have confidence in that you're doing it and not the pill is doing it, that you're the one who's making these changes, the better.
Right.
But if the pill helps, or if the I don't want to say gimmick, but the whatever the specific approach that may not be evidence supported, if that's helping you get there, then maybe it has some role independent of the biochemistry of it.
That's really interesting, and it made me think. Everything I try to just recognize my anecdotal experience with like that's how I categorize stuff, and I realized like there was a time in my life where I have 4 kids. When they got sick, my wife was just overwhelming them with vitamin C, and I kind of went like, "What are you doing?" And she said, it attaches to viruses and carries them off. And I said, that's just not true at all. Like, what are we doing with the vitamin C? And I think part of it was just like the kid is miserably sick and there's not much to do to comfort them. But if you actively have this ritual in place that they at least think you're doing something helpful, that could set them at ease, rather than just saying it's going to suck, just allow it to suck.
100%. And like, boy, was I glad when my parents gave me tons of vitamin C when I had a cold side. Thank goodness. Now we're taking care of this illness. And,
Right.
there's a kind of move in sports science, to say, the placebo effect is a dirty word, right? You're giving me a placebo. Like, what are you trying to trick me? So there's a guy, I'm blanking on his name, but a sports scientist from Australia who worked with Australian cyclists and swimmers. And then he came over and worked with the Philadelphia 76ers for a while. And I think he's gone back to Australia now, but he wrote a paper saying, let's rebrand it. It's not the placebo effect. It's the belief effect. And the
Right.
belief effect is something we should harness. It's a positive. Not that you're going to try and trick your athletes or whatever, but we need to understand that the power of the mind is important. That part of, even just the part, like a coach-athlete relationship is a placebo or call it a belief effect. If you believe that your coach knows stuff, then when the workout you're doing, you're like, yeah, this is the right workout. And so I'm making progress. And that gives you confidence to carry, not just when you step to the line in a competition, but to carry forward with your training, to keep doing the little things because you feel like you're on the right path. And so I think that whole package that applies as much to weight loss as it does to training for sport, that you want to feel like you're doing the things you need to do. And whether that's a guru who gives you confidence that you're doing the right thing, or some vitamin C, or whatever the case may be, all these things can have positive effects. So it's never black and white about what's good and bad.
Yeah, I know rat studies aren't the best for like equating them to human beings, but there's a rat study that I think perfectly captures this. And it's the guy drops rats in a bucket of water and they drown within 15 minutes. And then at 14 minutes and 30 seconds, he takes the next batch and takes them out of the water and lets them recuperate, drops them back in the bucket of water, and they survive for 60 hours.
Wow.
Just because they had hope. Like that to me is like hope is so powerful. This idea that we are doing something is so powerful. I don't know that I survived treading water for 60 hours with the hope that I'm going to get out, but like I do see the parallels here that all of the rats who didn't have hope died in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And the ones who had hope got at least 60 hours of treading water under them. Like, that's fucking crazy, dude.
I think I could have nightmares about that study because it's so like you can just feel like the rat. It's like,
yeah,
he could be coming.
It's
Someone's
coming.
walking by the hallway. I think he's going to come and take us out.
It's so awful. Yeah. And then they're there for 2.5 days or whatever it is, and succumb because he had to see how long they could last. It's a brutal study, but it does, I think, belief. I don't mind the word placebo. Placebo's magical. When COVID first happened, I was like, you're going to cure at least 15% of people, or you're going to help them. Just give people bacteriostatic water or something, saline. Just give them something. And some people will survive. It will help. I do think with chronic conditions that we're trying to handle, it becomes tricky because that is unsustainable. You know what I mean? Like, I had utter faith that I was allergic to carbohydrates, utter faith. And it just was not a permanent fix. It just never proved to be a permanent fix.
I think that's a great point and a great distinction that it's like Abe Lincoln or whatever. You can fool some of the people some of the time, and or all the people some of the time, and some of the people all the time, but you can't fool. It's like you can trick yourself to some extent about some things,
right?
But you can't live your entire life tricking yourself. Like, biology intervenes at some point.
So yeah.
the mind can take you far, but it can't take you all the way. And so it's at a certain point you have to be doing the right things.
Right.
But acknowledging the importance of mindset and confidence and having some hope is, I think, really important.
Yeah, I think because I'm with you, man. I don't want to poo-poo anything that's working for somebody. If it's part of your ritual and it gets you to the gym, throwing, is it beta-alanine that gives you the tingles?
Yeah.
So you throw that in your shake, and if that's helping you at the gym, because I've taken that, and I remember the first time I felt it, I thought, this must be doing something, and then I
didn't get the sugar pills. Yeah.
Right. And then I also took niacin once, and my veins were bulging out of my arms, and I was like, this is radical. I'm an animal, and so if that's what is part of your routine, don't mess with your routine if you're having success. But I think you're the broader part of your article, which really spoke to me, was the unconscious or subconscious trade-offs where, I have like a rule about how active I want to be every day. And if I started taking something and stopped paying attention to my activity, that's not a great trade-off,
Yeah. Like if I were to apply the broad message of that supplement article to weight loss, what I would say is, okay, leaving Ozempic out of it.
Sure.
Because that's a new thing. We don't know where that fits in our universe right now. But all the stuff that's being peddled online, on social media and stuff, I can't guarantee that nothing will do anything for you personally, for any given person personally. But what I can guarantee is, if those things do anything, it's at the margins. The vast majority of them, there's no evidence. So whatever you're going to do, you can include those in your routine if you want, but don't count on them. They're not going to take you. They're at best, they're going to be like the icing on the cake. And so you got to have some substance somewhere else in your approach, because the supplements, they're not, again, going back to the carbon plated shoes. If they were going to do the job, and even with the carbon plated shoes that changed the world, like, you still got to run 100 miles a week if you want to run a marathon,
right,
at an elite level. So it's like the supplements are minor at best, but because they're attractive, we pursue them, and then they can kind of give us the false sense that we're doing what we need to be doing. And that's never, it can never be all of the answer, and it can never be half of the answer, or at least, again, leaving aside with the caveat of, like, who knows about Ozempic? I don't know.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Ozempic, which I would say is, and again, like, I wouldn't ever assume everybody's like me, but I would suspect there are people out there that have a very similar affliction that I have. There are plenty of sober people, or people who are not yet sober, or who have been sober and are currently relapsed, like that. there's a thing there, and I go and hang out with these people, and we have something in common. And then I have like my wife who says she's struggling with 5 pounds of one, and that to me is not an actual problem. Like I don't perceive that as a problem in the same way as she does. When I tell her it's not a problem, she takes offense to it, and I recognize that that's not cool for me to do. Like I can't tell her what her problem is. But mine was 300 pounds, and mine, when I'm being totally honest, um, it wasn't that I was hungry. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't that I walked around feeling hungry all the time. It was that there was like a discomfort that I was avoiding, and eating comforted me and drugs comforted me. So I had a very similar relationship with um, drugs and alcohol that I had with food. And it wasn't really until I started to try and consider it that way that I was able to make some real long-term progress. Um, but I don't know that just because I would want to eat to the point that I couldn't move. It wasn't just satisfying this hunger. So if we have, you know, there's other interesting studies that speak to me, like the Dutch hunger winter study, where like, we had a lot of dieting taking place in the 1950s. Maybe that set the course for epigenetics to create a second generation that is more predisposed to obesity and type 2 diabetes. That's possible. And then maybe it is just wrapped up in physical hunger, in the homeostatic pathway to hunger, where your body is just going, we want more fuel, versus me who's trying to deal with something totally different. So I'm avoiding discomfort. I'm trying to fill some void within myself with this stuff. And I don't know that that turns off if you turn down my hunger. So I don't even know that it would be useful to people who are afflicted with what I'm afflicted with. But I do think, like, and I also don't think it's applicable to people like my wife who want to lose 5 pounds. I think we're dealing with some other thing, but I do think it's unfortunate that a lot of people, especially coming out of Los Angeles, who want to lose 5 to 10 pounds, are suddenly buying up this stuff and taking away from the people whose epigenetics have dialed their hunger way up. It's very complicated.
It is, and it's wrapped up in all sorts of moral judgments and things like that. I have to admit that, yeah, it's like I can't necessarily put my finger on why, but it doesn't seem right to me that, or not right, but for someone who wants to lose 5 pounds, if they're going to go
Yeah.
on Ozempic, that just seems like I'm not sure that's
No, I'm all
path
against
to
that.
happiness,
Yeah,
but
it seems
it's hard
awful.
to, we need like a moral philosopher here to sort of sort through the ethics of like why, well, what's the problem if there's no side effects? Why should I object? So and I'm not that moral philosopher, but I feel some discomfort, and I also recognize your point about there's clearly people who are overweight aren't all overweight for the same reason.
Right.
And so it's unlikely that there's one solution that's going to apply to everyone. And it's unlikely that no matter how great Ozempic turns out to be, that it'll solve all problems for all people.
Right.
It'll be great if it solves some problems for some people. It'll be fantastic. It'll be wonderful, but it's
Yes, to me, my initial reaction was, I think, what you were struggling with a bit, where I go like, man, I've been overweight since I was 5 years old and dreamed of a magic bullet. I wanted a magic bullet, so I don't buy any of it. I was put on fen when I was a little kid, and that was, I was thankfully taken off quickly because I stopped sleeping, but like, I thought that was the magic bullet. And then it turns out it was definitely not the magic bullet. And so and then I tried every other diet and saw doctors. And so my initial reaction was like, I don't believe it's the magic bullet, number one. And number two, like, everybody should be addressing their personal relationship with food. And I've, I just don't think everybody has what I have. And even if you have what I have and Ozempic fixes your relationship with food, I'm happy for you. I'm happy for anybody. You go get a surgery, you know, take Ozempic, whatever gets you to where you want to go, as long as you're not, you know, clubbing baby seals to get there. Like, I'm pretty okay with it. Um, it will be interesting to see what the outcome is long term.
Yeah, I feel like I have a deep-seated belief in karma in the universe or something, that there can't be something good that doesn't have a cost, right?
Right,
And
right,
that's there's no like rational reason for that. And so let's hope that that it's the case that 50 years from now, like, yeah, there's no problem with it. It's like drinking water. Like there's no,
right.
you know,
Yeah,
somehow it feels to me that there will be somehow some price to pay, but even if there is, I would suspect for a lot of people, whatever price there is to pay will be worth it for the benefits.
right.
Like it looks to me like this is going to be something that's with us for the long term, unless there's some dramatic, you know, like a thalidomide kind of like freakiness that comes out. But I don't see any evidence that.
I haven't seen it either, and the people have been taking it for diabetes
Like you said, yeah,
for a
exactly. So
long time. Nobody's grown a third arm.
yeah,
So, you know, I hope it is good. I hope there is nothing dramatic that comes out about it. And I still think, you know, for the people who are afflicted with me, even if you're getting the benefits of that, it's cool to focus on yourself too and figure out why your behavior is the way it is.
yeah, and yeah. Like I mean, building on that, it's like there's more to this whole question of relationship with food and health and long-term happiness than just like what the number on the scale says. So you know, maybe the uh, for some people Ozempic, or for a lot of people hopefully Ozempic will help address weight. That doesn't mean it's not worthwhile sorting out your relationship with food,
Right.
because we all eat multiple times a day,
Yeah.
and you know, you don't want that to be um, and you know, fixing the weight for a lot of people will reduce the issues with food, because that's a lot of the source of it, but it's not the only source. And so I mean, I really think being on that journey will pay off no matter what Ozempic does or doesn't do.
Yeah. Me too. Alex, thank you so much. This has been such a fascinating conversation, and I'm so excited to have had you on my show. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Ethan. It's been really fun and some deep issues to think about and talk about. So I've really enjoyed it.
Yes, sir.